My name is Itah Kandjii-Murangi and welcome to the Evening Review. Please do take a look at today's newspaper. Welcome to Evening Review. My name is Itah Kandjii-Murangi and joining me in studio is Amunime of the Student Union of Namibia. Welcome back.
Yes, no, thank you for having me and greetings to the viewers.
One can describe what has happened as probably a victory for the Student Union of Namibia, where we've seen students stick to their guns and say that they would not want their non-tuition fees to be used for the purchase of laptops. Just want to go back to that conversation. How do you feel?
Yes, in fact, one celebrates to come back today here. Remembering the first time we came here, we were actually in the process of blocking that deal. So from the student side, it's a victory for us to note that the 180 million NUST tender that was intended for laptop was eventually cancelled because of irregularities and those complaints that came from...
Alleged.
Yeah, alleged irregularities that came from, but us, it's not even alleged. As a equal stakeholder, we knew this thing from the onset. 180 million never went through any public procurement procedure because they were using the COVID. It was just exempted like that at the Ministry of Finance. And also there was no proper consultation done. From the onset, one company was given that whole deal, then again they have to retrieve it and give it and open up the bidding. So it's not even alleged from our side because we know those processes and what have been happening for the onset. But it's victory for us and we are very happy that we were able to disrupt that whole process, because as we said earlier, it was a scheme by the cabal, mostly politicians and administrators at these institutions that arrange that 180 million so they benefit themselves. Yeah, so we are very happy that that's not going forward, and it's a victory for students.
What happens now? How ideally should you see such a deal being structured for the benefit of students? Because we're talking about fourth industrial revolution. It's no denial that students need laptops. They need dongles or internet devices. So out of the money or out of the funding that the fund gives to students, what would you like to see, or how best can this be structured for the benefit of students?
Yeah, I think it's very important that as the ministry responsible for all these strategic institutions within the education fraternity plans better next time. I think we must learn a lesson from COVID to say that let's not just be proactive at the time of crisis. So even if now things have subsided, they are normalizing, we must still plan that ICT is a very important aspect when it comes to the education. We have to capacitate the institutions of higher learning. We have to capacitate even secondary school where these learners or students are coming from, because it must start at the foundation. But in relations to the internet, to the devices, it's very important, first and foremost, for the institution that is established by Act of Parliament, NUST, already to take cognizance of the fact that it's very important that students have access to this facility. So that's why there's that provision of non-tuition fee of 17,000 or 21,600 yearly, because we all understand the struggle of students. So what must happen is that students must be given this non-tuition fee as early as February. So the planning must be better. So from the onset, then they are able to buy according to their preference, because we must also be able to understand that courses are not the same. Someone who's doing computer science doesn't require the same access to someone who's doing HR. So they require in terms of bandwidth and many other requirements. So it's good that the students know what preference and what requirements they would like, but as long as we give them this non-tuition fee, of course they will have access to this. But there are also other programs or avenues that government can look into by going into memorandum of understanding with providers, for example, like Telecom and MTC. No UNAM usually give those data and dongles to their students, but it's not extended to private institutions as well as NUST. Let's make it a requirement that all institutions are into MOE with these service providers, that students just buy them directly at campuses, then they are loaded maybe every month and so forth. It's much easier when you do it in a group. But for one really now just want to assist people when some are already done with exams, some are to complete exam, it doesn't really make sense. So as equal stakeholder, because education is a shared responsibility, of course, it's not only up to the ministry, but we are always willing, it's a very important stakeholder, to provide direction, because we deal directly with the student on a daily basis. But it's unfortunate here and there, our leaders, particularly those from central government, have always that arrogance. We don't know that it's undermining maybe perhaps of student leader and so forth, but we have solutions to these things because we deal with them every day. They don't even need to panic and say 180 million and so forth. So this has to be done. Internet has to be accessible to each and every student. It should happen on campus, it should happen when you are at home. So they capacitate the ICT infrastructures at campuses and the architecture, then at home they are able to have mobile internet that you are able to engage into research and do assignment better without any problems.
I want to come back now to the issue of NSFAF. On a yearly basis, students apply for funding from the fund, and I want to understand, because I was a student myself, and from observation you would see that once students get funds, they would the manner in which this money or these funds are utilized is always not it's not always aligned to them spending it on their education. Now, what type of support services are you providing as a student union, and do you think that there is some psychological support in terms of how students use their money? Is that lacking, and should that also be a responsibility of education institutions to guide students?
Not necessarily. From our side, we've always provided direction in that regard. Of course, we are not surprised, because we are now focusing on the consequences to understand, but the root causes of that is of course caused by the Ministry of Finance as well as the line ministry, which is Ministry of Higher Education. We gave them a proposal to say it doesn't make sense we need to give someone non-tuition fee in November. So what am I going to use that? I'll buy an iPhone, or I'll buy Christmas gifts to my girlfriend or my grandmother that I missed for so much. So we gave them a new model to say, look, this money is intended to assist students throughout the year. Accommodation, transport, your books, your internet devices, printing of, and all those type of support. But there's always a delay in terms of giving out this and settling this non-tuition. We told them that, look, let's allocate it and say, let's start giving students a monthly allowance. If it's 21,000, let's divide it into months. We say, okay, we give you 3,000, maybe at the end of February. After another month or two, we give you maybe a 4,000. So we give, then people are able to have access to this money as early as possible, then they are able to use it. Then they always come and blame the narrative. Students buy alcohol with the money. They spend, it was a frustrating year. The whole year you are suffering, you are being chased by landlords. Now you give someone 20,000 as a student in December. Of course, people who squander the money We are not supporting that, but that's the reality on the ground. But that can be avoided if we are able even to give them, even in terms of a quota system, to allocate and say, we'll give you after every 2 months or every month, then someone is able at least to utilize the money better. Because for me to give you money November for accommodations is January doesn't. So it even puts students in debts. Some go and borrow money, some stay in accommodation on debts. There's always, they sell their laptops. It's a very difficult situation. So there's a very good solution to that matter. We've given it to them. We don't know why they don't want to implement it. You see, we're even telling them when this COVID-19 stimulus fund came, they're giving people money via cell phones. But it's so difficult to adapt the same model. See, okay, they were giving people 750 finance as long as it's well regulated to say, no, your student number, you are registered at this institution. So maybe you don't have a bank account, because they always say, no, students, when they open bank accounts, they close. That's why they have to get a third party. First was NAMIC, then Benwinduk. So the problem is money comes from treasury, goes to higher education. From higher education, goes to NASFAF. From NASFAF, then the money goes to Benwinduk. From Benwinduk to students or UNAM. What type of crisis is that? You have to put money into change. Why don't you just send the money directly from Ministry of Finance or Education and say, how many students are registered at UNAM? No, 5,000 that are eligible for funding. Send their invoices. You send the money directly to the account. Then in terms of the students, you either get the account number or you adapt a model like that one where you are able to send money directly to students. It's an established structure network that is put there to empower certain individuals, because it's a tendering system. This one distributes money, this one gives the money maybe in the suitcase, this one provides invoices, some useless and unnecessary processes that are put there. That's why we're really saying, for us, our principal decision as a union is to say the whole entity of NASFAF have to be disbanded. You make it a directorate in the Ministry of Higher Education, it becomes better because it serves no purpose. The crisis at NASFAF is not a budgetary matter. You get allocated 1.4 billion per year, but you still struggle to pay students. Some are rejected. What do you do with the money? So you spend the money on luxury vehicle, good building, those unnecessary things. Take the money, NASFAF then deals with administrative matter of contract, signing off those things. Because if we are able to imagine yourself now, what is the purpose of NASFAF? One, they don't distribute money. Money is distributed by Benwinduk. Secondly, they don't collect money even in terms of debt recovery. They've hired another, outsourced that services to someone else. So what do they do then? It's only to write press conferences and say these are the requirements. So let's take it back, because those people are highly paid. Highly paid if you compare the rates of NASFAF. Highly paid. They don't do anything. The staff members are few. The building is too big. There's unnecessary luxury there. I don't know if journalists have visited that area. There's a gym. There's a golf course there up. There's a kindergarten for staff members. It's unnecessary things there. So student money has been spent recklessly, and they even misappropriate fund. Even the building itself was not allocated from capital project funding. They took student money for funding and build that luxury building. So the crisis is the leadership of NASFAF, as well as the minister itself responsible. Because I don't know if we follow, the former CEO, Ms. Nilangiwete, was suspended 2017. So 2018-19, 2020, you have someone acting. Where did you see that? Crisis. You have a strategic institution like that without a substantive head. Master Itah Kandjii-Murangi have been acting. According to a state-owned enterprises, you act for 6 months. After that 6 months, if they don't advertise, it's rotational. Maybe you give to another strategic executive to act. So we also test leadership. You give for someone just to act like that because there's a purpose. They've placed the person there. Weak leadership.
Okay. I want to understand another thing. What is the feeling of students in terms of paying back NASFAF loans?
Yeah, we took a very unpopular decision when it came to the question of paying back the money. You see, NASFAF have around, I think, more than 2 billion unaccounted until to date. A lot of millions are getting stolen every day. It's in the newspaper, it's everywhere, it's public knowledge. So we are saying, why must I pay back money to an institution that is not well governed and that is irresponsible? The second question is that the company that is contracted to do debt recovery, that company takes almost 50%. So if you recover $100, the other $50 go to that company. For us, it's unfair. Why can NASFAF not recover the money themselves? Why do you charge so much money to recover money? So our principle was say students must not pay back the money. So with fish, the industry, with mines, with all these resources, those must pay. NSFAF must just find a sustainable way of getting money, not to rely on government funding. They can get fishing quota, for example, and say this quota must be allocated to fund students. They must have stakes in different state companies, even in mines, to fund students. So money is there. So students must not pay back the money. Reasons being, one, we are all coming, because NASA fund us that are coming from underprivileged community and those that are marginalized. So you have other younger siblings and your parents to take care of. So rather use that money to assist those young ones, your parents and so forth. But other than that, we also want to hold the executive accountable. His Excellency, the President of the country, Dr. Hage Geingob, in 2015 takes office, have a press conference and say all loans must be turned into grants. So what is a grant? A grant basically means we're giving you a grant to study for free of charge. And it's very clear. A journalist can go through archives and search those things. The President was very clear that the system must be changed from a loan-giving system to a grant system, because our people are poor. And education is key, so we have to empower them through education. So we're actually following to the words of the President of the country, that we must not pay back the loans. They must be turned into grants. That's why we're not paying back anything. Those, especially the minister, she was on record in Parliament even attacking a young MP that they never paid back. We're making it very clear to them. They must not undermine the directive and instruction of the head of state, especially people like that are making the president to fail. The instruction from the head of state was very clear that it's not a loan system, it's grant. So we are very happy and we welcome that, and we are exactly just doing that. We are not paying back anything. And we call upon any students there, when you are graduate, don't pay back anything to NSFAF. Maybe you can pay for someone registration fee. We can always assist in terms of charity and many others, but not to give the money to such an institution that is irresponsible.
I want to come back to you mentioned the minister. I mentioned the Minister of Higher Education, who alleged, who attacked the PDM Member of Parliament, Itah Kandjii-Murangi. But that's not the conversation I want to have with you. The conversation I want to have with you is allegations that she's been interfering in the appointment process of the vice-chancellor of the Namibia University of Science and Technology. As the student union, what do you make of these allegations, and what do you think should optimally be happening at the institution as far as the appointment of a new vice-chancellor is concerned?
Yeah, actually, we're having that conversation with other stakeholders. Then they were calling us, that we are maybe a prophet, because we're already saying these things before they get exposed by the media. The problem with the Minister of Higher Education, ever since she took over office, Honorable Dr. Itah Kandjii-Murangi, have been a case to the higher education fraternity. Why? As you are speaking now, we have around 6 institutions that are headless that falls under a ministry directly. You speak about NUST, you speak about WVTC, you speak about NIM, you speak about NTA, you speak about the National Commission on Research and Technology, you speak about all those institutions, because this is an individual that have deliberate interest in those institutions. So what she does is that she benefits from chaos and leadership vacuum. When there's no one, then that's how she benefits. So we already coined a name for her. We call her an interferist, because she interferes in the leadership of any institution. She's interfering in NUST, she's interfering in NTA. Until now, NTA, the CEO have resigned. There was an acting CEO, doesn't like it, that acting have to resign. Now she have someone, it's alleged she have someone that she wants to place there. So the minister have really become a problem, and she's collapsing the higher education sector. Even the allegations that are coming from the former vice-chancellor, Prof. Chama, Prof. Chama Chivikwa, regarding imposing the prof to employ her daughter, to employ family members and those things. This thing we knew all along, because she had been troublesome. And ever since she took over, this is the crisis in terms of those institutions, because it's very scary to have such institution without heads. And we think the minister is not fit to lead that institution. We know that she's a doctor, she's a psychologist. Maybe she can be demoted or maybe seconded to something else, but she's not the right person to lead. And I just wish the president is able to hear our cries, because this is always the first stage. We write letters, we go to press conference, we are peaceful. But we are not going to stay at this level forever. We are going to get tired, and we are going to confront this situation. We subscribe to radical politics, but not violence. But if our leadership is irresponsible from hearing our cries, we have no other option but to exploit those other radical avenues that are available.
Thank you, Mr. Amunime.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning into the Evening Review. Good night.